In the Seventh Circle, Middle Ring, by KrystalPaigeSky. As soon as I entered the middle ring of the seventh circle, it repulsed me. From afar, the upcoming dark woods had the appearance of something from a horror movie, but now as I drew closer, it appeared as if from a nightmare. What I had thought were tall trees were actually many small ones growing on top of the other. One tree's twisted branches was bent and warped under the weight of 5 other trees that sprouted from the very bark, and it continued above us, on, out of sight. The very sight made me feel sick. It was too unnatural. "How are we going to get through here?" I asked, despairing. The trees were suffocating themselves, leaving barely any room for air, let alone something of my size and stature. "We must go through the waters," was the guide's response. "Come now, we must move quickly." I felt my stomach flip over in repulsion at the thought of entering the bloody river, but from the look in my guide's eyes, I gulped it back and entered the dark river behind her. The thick and warm liquid came up to my thighs, and the smell that rose from it made me want to vomit. I had thought of myself as not squeamish, but this would get to anyone. "Keep your eyes on the banks," my guide instructed me, and I gratefully looked away from what I was wading through. A strange sight caught my eye, and I instantly stopped, trying to see it clearly. It seemed that one of the ancient bent trees had a branch that had been snapped off, and the splinters were dark with a thick fluid that flowed down from its trunk and was slowly making a path to the river I was in. But the fluid was too thin to be sap, and the color of it matched the bloody river in a way that made my hair stand up. What is that?" I asked, once again fighting down the sick feeling in my stomach. "A harpy has been after that one," my guide said, seeing my gaze. "That tree is not a tree. It is a soul. I believe that you already knew. Its branch has been broken off, and now its blood flows down to join this cursed river." "Then it is in pain?" I asked, horrified. "As are all the rest." I involuntarily glanced around at the surrounding nightmare-like woods, feeling repulsion and pity explode inside me. Why do they harm each other by growing out of their comrades' limbs? There is no room for all of them. They used to be able to keep to themselves, but now there is not enough room for these souls. Wherever the soul's seed falls when Minos damns them, they will grow there with no choice of where to be. These dark woods grow taller and taller by the year. One day they will touch and reach out of limbo. "What is their crime?" I began to ask, but then I heard a voice, one that I knew in my heart, and it made me freeze. "I know your voice, one that lives!" My guide and I stopped and turned in the direction of the voice, only to see more trees. "Do you speak to this young living soul?" my guide asked, putting her hand on my shoulder. Yes, please draw nearer so that I may hear you clearly." I hesitated and glanced at my guide for help, and she instantly gave me a reassuring push forward towards the voice. I waded clumsily through the heavy waters of the river and drew closer to the shore. "Which one of you speaks to me?" I asked. "It is I, the small bush that clings to the ancient tree, a flash of brighter green than everyone else, for I am younger," was the response, and I spotted the soul where he had said he was. Barely as big as the length of my arm, the small soul was indeed a bit greener than the other gray, black, and brown ones. I stumbled out of the river, feeling the warm liquid running down my thighs and making my shoes sloshy like wading in jello. "Who are you? Why do I feel I know your voice?" I asked, as I knelt by the small bush that protruded from the trunk of the black tree. "No, you must answer me first, those same questions," the little bush insisted, and I felt shock run through me like fire. No soul had showed such attitude towards me in this whole journey. My guide stepped up behind me and drew her bright sword threateningly. "You dare stand up to someone higher than you," she started, but I waved her off. "No, it is fine. I will do as he asked," I said, feeling unease prickle within me. I had never spoken against her. She looked at me and nodded, sheathing her great weapon and stepping back. "I am KrystalPaigeSky, and I am a still living soul. I come from the west coast of the United States where—" Yes, I know who you are!" the little bush suddenly cried, his voice ringing clear among the whispers of the dense air. "You are the daughter of the kind friends of my mother's. You were friend to my joy and torture, Georgia." "Joseph?" My voice was like a tiny whisper, like the sighing of the surrounded souls. "You are a friend of my sister, yes?" The little bush with a sickening familiar voice responded, sounding puzzled. Yes, I was, I replied, as if in a dream. To hear such a familiar voice, to know that this small plant in front of me once looked like when he lived. Why do you come here? He sounded concerned, like a mother of a child who does not respond to her questions. You are not being escorted to a lower circle. I laughed once without humor, glancing at my guide, who nodded, telling me to continue on my own. Although I would belong in a circle here, I do not come to be eternally punished. I come for the reason that is only known to ones of heaven. I am to discover it on this journey. The divine meddles with your life, Joseph asked, remorse in his tone. If only they had done the same with me, perhaps I would not be here. Tears I had never shed over my friend's beloved brother suddenly burst from my eyes, hearing his words. Joseph! I sank to my knees, reveling in the fact that one I had once known was here with me. Why are you here? You were only happy. You were a good person. You were always smiling. You never did anything bad. Why must you be punished for being such a good person? I am not punished for what I did in my life, but rather how I ended it, Joseph said quietly, just in the way his sister spoke for many weeks after his self-induced death. Joseph, I wish that I could take you with me, I said, reaching out to touch a leaf of the soul who used to grab me around the torso and catapult us both into the water of the pool. No, he must remain here eternally, my guide said, stepping forward to stop me. I looked up at her, her figure blurred and shaking from my uncontrollable sadness that had overwhelmed me. You may not move me, but I'll let you take a limb of mine. This small leaf that is bright and young and green. Take it with you. Quickly, remove it as fast as possible. I wish for you to have it. Take it back with you so that I will never be forgotten. Swiftly, without me moving, my guide used her sword to quickly cut the small leaf that was trembling, and Joseph screamed, a sound that brought back a buried memory of Georgia and myself pinning down her elder brother for a ruthless tickling, but severely warped by the new agony in his voice. I shrank away, terrified for my old friend, and the one with the sword gently caught the severed leaf that was barely the size of my thumb. Dark liquid blossomed from the small cut and began running down the small twig, soaking it. Joseph, I finally managed, and ran forward to what remained of his pure soul. What can I do to ease the pain? You wouldn't happen to have a Band-Aid, would you? Joseph's voice was weak and broken. It had made the tears in my eyes threaten to overflow again. It was wrong to hear his voice in such distress. We must move on, my guide warned. I let you stay longer because you knew this soul, but there are still 2 more circles of hell to get through. I nodded, but didn't move to follow her. Instead, I removed my bandana and quickly tore it in 2. I do not have a bandage, but I have this cloth. May I wrap it around your wound? Yes, please. Joseph's voice was fading, and I quickly wrapped the purple cloth around the bloodied branch, doubling it over many times to try to get enough pressure to stop the bleeding. I tied it off when I thought it was good enough, and felt my guide's hand on my shoulder. I must go, Joseph. There were so many things to say, and I would never see him again. Thank you for everything. I turned slowly to follow my leader, expecting a response, but none came from the splash of green in the dark. My family, are they... Joseph asked finally, as we re-entered the river, his voice seeming desperate. I do not know, I said, feeling the words strike my heart. I haven't seen them in a long time. They miss you, though, I know that. I searched my memories to try and find something that would somewhat begin to satisfy him. When they needed money, your sister let her horse be sold, but she refused to give up yours. My dear, dear one, Joseph said. Still misses me? We all miss you, Joe, I said, fighting against my guide to stay with him just a little longer. Why? Why did you commit suicide? We all loved you! My tears were running down my face in such a hurry that already they were leaping from my chin to join the bloody water. You loved me? Joseph said louder, calling out to my unwillingly retreating figure, my guide using her superior strength to drag me backwards. Of course, Joe! So many people loved you, I yelled, pulling against the one who was trying to take me away from my beloved friend. Thank you. His voice was faint due to the distance, but I detected some of that happy 15-year-old that I remembered so vividly. Why did we have to leave? I asked, giving in and turning slowly to slosh through the heavy warm liquid of the river, moving much slower than I would through even sand. He will never truly leave you. My guide held out a hand that offered the small bloodied green leaf that had once been part of what remained of Joseph's soul. I took it reverently and held it close to my heart, feeling its strange and pulsing heat. My guide led me forward, for I could not see from the tears in my vision. When we reached the final ring, I still could not see anything. I wanted to go back to Joseph and speak with him more, but I would never see him again.